Well, Americans frequently say, "Why are Canadians so funny?" And um, I think they are shocked when they hear Dan Aykroyd, Phil Hartman, Eugene Levy, Martin Short, and all these people are Canadian, and because Americans are very sort of America centric, and they learn about the Constitution and George Washington, American history in American schools. I know this because I went to school here. I'm from 6 to 12 years old. I was in Durham. And you don't learn about the rest of the world in school here. So it's always shocking when people from somewhere else come here and they're any good at anything. So I think that's why Americans ask the question because, they're surprised that people from a place that they don't know a lot about, and you know, they hear they have good beer there, and it gets cold there, and then it starts to thin out. The actual information thins out badly. Watch Jay Leno's street walk and stuff that he does, where he asks people, who's the president of the United States, who's the vice president, and the knowledge of people is really, it's shockingly low, And I found this in comedy because the reference levels that you use and the jokes that you use, the executives will just plane it off. They'll say, no, nobody knows that. Nobody knows about that. And you get exceptions to that rule, like The Simpsons, that do a very sort of heavy reference level writing, but do a slapstick so that they can keep the morons happy and then satisfy the smarter people, and people feel that they got something from that show. Now, I've drifted from your question, which was, why are Canadians so funny? I've heard theories that Canadians are objective because they're not part of American culture and they have a satirical objectivity. I don't believe that. I think that's a really pseudo-intellectual answer, and maybe something that could be studied in a screenwriting class that is as related to screenwriting as, making a baseball is to being a major league pitcher. I think that a lot of the schools will ask questions like that, and the answer is Canadians really aren't funnier than Americans. There just happen to be a few of them that come down here. Americans notice them and go, gee, there seems to be a lot of funny Canadians here. What's that all about? And then somebody will develop a thesis based on that observation. I think if you statistically line up all the funny people in entertainment and say, okay, how many of these people are American and how many are Canadian, it won't be that impressive, But I've worked with a lot of funny Canadians who have different viewpoints, but I don't think that's a geographical thing, Like Dan Aykroyd, for example, had a type of comedy that I'd never seen before when I first saw him. And that made him unique. And he could do blue-collar raps on Saturday Night Live where he'd play a refrigerator repairman who would expose the crack of his ass, but at the same time, he would be knowledgeable about refrigeration coolants and the structure and the way a actual fridge works because he brought that richness to his thing. So he wasn't playing the refrigeration repairman as an idiot. He was playing him as a guy that was good at his job, but he just happened to bend over and expose the crack of his ass, and the audience loved it. He did a very unique kind of comedy. Phil Hartman did a very unique kind of comedy, but that wasn't distinctly Canadian either. And it was just, he was a master of the voice. He sort of built his comedy out from the voice out to the character, and Peter Sellers used to do that, and he's British. So he's not the only one that ever did it, and I don't think that's a distinctive feature of being Canadian, John Candy was funny because people just loved him. He was a big, chubby, lovable guy. When he walked on the screen, people go, I like that guy. And I know that's true because I was on stage with John, and you can tell in that, especially in comedy, in that first 3 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, when you're out there, you can tell, is this going to work or is this not going to work? There's a feeling you get with the audience. And when you went out with John, you always had about 30 seconds, maybe a minute or two of grace, where the audience would cut you some slack because they loved him so much. So then in improvisational comedy, you'd have a little time to come up with stuff. And I always like going out with him because it upped the averages of how we would do. You know, he was fun to work with. Marty Short is like Sammy Davis Jr. and Jerry Lewis and Frank Sinatra, all kind of packed into one little entertainment ball. And he's from Hamilton. And there's nothing about Hamilton that says that comedy and that style of entertaining is distinctively Martin Short. You know, he's just this amazing little energy force that has all of this talent that is, it's not you can't bottle it. Marty has never really like had a show like Seinfeld where he can be bottled in a show because that's not what he does, you know. But he's won a couple of Tonys on Broadway and he can do, you know, multiple characters and zip around. So I mean, these are 3 or 4 different comedians who I know who are really funny and who people embrace down here as their own. But even though they recognize them as Canadian,